Welcome, everybody, to the Hollow Bone with Phoenix. If you're new to this, being the hollow bone means being a channel or conduit for source, where healing, messages, and even miracles come through. So each week on this show, you can expect to hear live channelings that open your heart and lift your energy, conversations with visionary leaders walking their own path of alignment, healing transmissions that flow directly from source through the hollow bone. So whether you tune in live or listen to the archives, every episode is a chance to receive guidance, expand your awareness, and align more fully with the miracles waiting for you. Today's visionary leader is Zen Benefiel. In this 7th Mission Hope series called Finding Strength Through Every Storm, he is the author of the chapter called The Quiet Climb, a story of ordinary resilience. Zen is a 2-volume Mission Hope best-selling author. He's a transformational coach, the founder of Be the Dream and Planetary Citizens, past co-executive director of the Live and Let Live Global Peace Movement, and the author of over 40 books. He is a cognitive scientist, a futurist, a digital strategist, a podcast host, and a man whose life work is dedicated to fostering a global shift in consciousness. Welcome, Zen.
Namaste and in cats, and thank you for having me, Phoenix. This is going to be exciting. And as you were talking about the relevance of the hollow bone, I was recognizing the hollowness in me.
Yes, 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 yes. I'm so glad you see that. Yes. And so, just because the listeners might not know, tell us why you said that.
Oh, well, in the prelim, we were talking about trust, right? My life is built on faith, love, and trust. I began life as an orphan. And so it wasn't until 6 weeks later that I was adopted, not realizing that period was tremendously infectious to the rest of my life in seeking connection.
Foundational, wasn't it? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't wish it on anybody, and yet it held so many blessings that I wouldn't change it for anything.
Yes.
Not, and the trials and tribulations are a bit tough sometimes, but it goes along with the territory, right?
That's life.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. And so trust led you in down many paths there. But in your chapter, let's kind of focus on that for the listeners.
Sure.
Um, and so you became an aerospace engineer. Is that what you would call yourself?
Well, it wasn't an engineer. It was an engineer of systems and how to get people, places, and things aligned and coherent, productive, and exceeding expectations.
It sounds impossible.
To many, it is. To me, it wasn't. And
Uh-huh.
the reason it wasn't is because I treated people how I wanted to be treated. Now, I grew up with some very strong morals, values, ethics. My father was a 32nd degree Mason. Mom was a school teacher. They both sang in the choir at church. I became involved with Dee Malay as an early teen. I was master counselor at 15. Now, Dee Malay, for those who aren't aware, is built around Jacques de Molay, who, rather than betray his brethren, he gave up his life. He was a Knights Templar in the Masonic order.
Oh, okay.
So de Molay is like a young men's Masonic order, and they teach 7 cardinal virtues. There's rituals that we go through, and just it's a solid. I can't think of any other more solid foundation for youth growing up, and that's for guys, all right, for the boys.
Hmm.
Job's daughters was a similar
Oh,
thing
right. Yes.
for girls.
Yeah.
So that kind of instruction in a small town um, was just impeccable in
Absolutely.
giving my life the value that it deserved
Hmm.
and deserves.
And the direction too, wasn't it?
Well, I'm not so sure about direction because I really didn't have any at that time. I
Uh-huh.
was just a curious kid with a really high IQ that nobody could understand. And I would ask questions in class that even baffled the teachers. Now, my parents didn't tell me about how smart I was after my IQ test in second grade. They were afraid. And
Yeah.
they didn't tell me until my mid-30s.
Oh
And
my
I was
goodness.
like, why didn't you tell me? I might have applied myself a little more. And they said, well, we were afraid it would go to your head and you'd get this huge ego.
Wow.
And apparently it was felt that I had one just because of my curiosity and the kind of questions I got and had, right? Because when you're
Right.
smart, you don't necessarily want to show it off,
No, you just
right?
want to
It's just who
know
you
everything.
are.
Yeah. Yeah, you
So
just
with neurodiversity today and all these different aspects of, intelligence and the ways we present it, most of us are still in that old pattern of we think others think the way we do.
yeah.
And that's just not true. There's diversity, right? So I love the end of disclosure. I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but I love the end of the disclosure day, right? When the ancient alien is telling the broadcaster the message to give to the public that she's getting ready to go on air for. And that message was simply, listen. And what does that mean? It's not with your ears, it's with your being.
With your heart.
That's the hollowness in the bone
Yep.
of
Yep.
contention, usually.
Oh my goodness.
Uh,
So everything created this foundation for your inquisitiveness, and
mhm.
it sounds like also a desire to make the world a better place. And where did
Sure.
that come from, though?
Well, it started when I was a kid. I just wanted to help people. I had my cancer. So my nature is to be helpful and create
Mhm.
harmony and all of those kinds of things. And so um, in that brainiacness, I tested out of 5 quarters going into pre-med. And in my first quarter, after the first quarter, I went back to ask my child or my high school sweetheart to marry me and found out she was already married. And so it just took all, heartbreaking, right?
Oh,
Still wasn't sure what direction I wanted to go. Medicine was cool. I loved it. I had an uncle that was just a phenomenal diagnostician and had this just amazing bedside manner.
my God.
And so I wanted to follow his footsteps. Found out it wasn't really what I wanted to do. And so in between first and second quarter, when I got back to school, I hit my knees and I prayed to know what truth was. And I was willing to die for it if necessary. I was that distraught.
Wow.
And lo and behold, I came back from class the following Tuesday, happened to be 11/11, 1975. And in meditation, that I usually did a meditation in between class and schoolwork. And sometimes there was a little imbibing involved in between. It was the 70s, right?
Exactly.
And so I was listening to Journey's first album, and in between the vocals and the vamp on one of the songs, the voice that I'd been familiar with since childhood, that inner voice that I found, the hollowness, right? The
Yes.
voice that's behind the silence,
Yes.
right? So it asked me if I was willing to die for what I believed in. And immediately I thought of Christ consciousness because that was the example, right?
Exactly.
It, for some reason, felt a little empty. I wasn't sure why. Didn't question it.
Yeah.
My next thought was cosmic consciousness
Yeah.
because that's what Christ embodied,
Yeah.
right? And then later I realized, oh, there's the difference. It was because it was the embodiment that it didn't feel quite whole because cosmic consciousness is formless. That's
Yes.
what we're
Yes.
and then when I came back from it, so during that process, I was given a mission, and that mission was I was surrounded by points of light. I knew they were points of consciousness, whether in body or not, wasn't sure, but I thought they were somehow. And then this voice explained, well, these are those I'm to work with this life in order to facilitate a new world order of harmony among people and planet. And today, I think that's coherence intelligence.
Yes.
And then when I came back, I instantly realized that we're all cosmic consciousness condensed into form, just unaware. So this, 50 years hence, I've been working on, okay, how do you articulate that? How do you experience it?
Uh-huh.
And how do you share the process?
Exactly.
So that led me into all kinds of different industries. And, the first major um, position
Mhm.
was managing $7 million a month in shipments in the aerospace industry for commercial spare parts, 800 SKUs, right?
Oh, good
And so
Lord.
this is where I first learned about systems
Yeah.
and systems engineering, back to your original question. There was a little filler there to bring it back to center. I'm tangential, but I always bring it back to the circle.
I see that.
Um, so in that process, by just treating people how I would like to be treated, I soared to the top of the production charts in
Mhm.
a 35-person department.
Whew.
After almost a year, a couple of supervisors came to me, and when you have supervisors, one come into your cubicle, it may not be a problem. Two generally indicates there's a problem, right? So I'm like, well, what did I do? And they're like, no, 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 no. We want to know how you're doing your job because this is where you are. I had no idea. And, it kind of took me back. And my first response was, I just treat people how I want to be treated. It's interpersonal skills, right? Now called emotional intelligence.
Yes.
It wasn't then. And so that kind of led into uh, a 3-year period of me attempting to get interpersonal skills classes instituted in our department. And then, things happen. You can imagine being a disruptor in the mid 80s, they weren't liked, right? And when I brought it up, the notion, when I brought it up in our departmental meeting, biannual, I think they were, I was shunned by almost everybody. And I thought here, I'm the youngest guy in the department. I'm trying to do my best. I'm trying to be the company man. I'm looking at what needs to be done and how it can be improved. And I'm making suggestions from that perspective.
Exactly.
Totally misunderstood by a bunch of egos that felt threatened.
Yep.
Not my intention. I wanted to be the best for everybody.
Right?
And so management, upper management recognized that, eventually asked me to bring a consultant in if I knew one. I did and had the discussion that I was part of it. And then 3 weeks later, I was demoted. Same week, my divorce was final. And so I was like, oh, okay. So then I, kind of lost my way for a little bit, ended up leaving the company. And then a year and a half later, I ran into the purchasing department secretary and the purchasing department director's secretary who had her desk right outside my cubicle. So,
Oh,
there was a natural inclination to develop relationships, right?
absolutely.
And so I ran into her in a grocery store one day and she said, "You'll never guess what just happened." And I said, "What?" They instituted interpersonal skills classes plant wide.
Oh my
That's
God.
2,700 people.
And they had to get rid of you to do that?
Isn't
I
Well,
mean,
I mean, during that period, that was kind of standard procedure.
yeah,
Nobody wants to give the instigator or the disruptor credit for what they initiate.
it's true. It's
And that's
true.
society today,
You're
still.
right. You are right.
So I don't like being right in that way. I would rather be wrong,
I
right?
exactly.
So what do we do about that?
Hmm.
And that's been my continued efforts. Like, okay, it doesn't fit there. Well, I know it fits everywhere.
Yeah.
It's
Uh-huh.
just not seen to do that yet,
You're ahead of your time. Hmm.
and at least as a drummer, I'm impeccable. I have impeccable timing in the fills that I provide.
One of your many skills.
Uh, you gain them just by simply being curious and wondering if you can
Yeah.
and stepping up to try.
Right. Right. There's the resilience, right? You just
Yeah.
don't say no to anything. You just say, "Oh, well, what if?"
Yeah. And
Mhm.
if you don't or can't, it's not a failure. You're just failing forward. You figured out something doesn't work for you,
Yeah.
right? Next.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. But that time period, then, when you lost your job, you were finalizing your divorce, you also lost a piece of your soul, it sounded like in your chapter
How
there.
could you not? Right? How could you not?
I
You give your
know.
best effort in multiple ways. I mean, I was doing my best to be the best employee, the
Hmm.
best father, best husband, the best church elder. And, you know, even though my principles I felt were impeccable
Hmm.
and have proven to be so throughout my life,
Yeah,
others don't necessarily rise to that.
right.
And because of whatever it is in their lives that they can't make the choice to move through that fear or resistance or whatever, the unknown, right?
Hmm.
Um, they rescind and then they begin to express aberrant behaviors that don't and that aren't consistent
Hmm.
with harmony.
Hmm.
And then you just got to let them go,
Yeah.
right? You can talk about it, you can say, hey, and still, but you're not going to suffer your own integrity to do so.
No, exactly.
And that's what others expect,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? They respect a
Conformity.
reaction, a negative, this battle.
Hmm.
I told her, told my wife one night, multiple times, I said, I got no change on your heart. You want to be with me? If you want to be with me, you want to be with me. If you don't, I, nothing I can do.
Right.
Because I am who I am, and it's obvious by what I do that I'm supportive of us, our family, the future. I was a sole provider, and
Yeah.
we had 4 children,
Whew.
and there were multiple affairs that got in the way. I accepted and wanted to, work through those, and hopefully things would transcend once she got tired of those patterns and realized they weren't working.
Wow.
And she even went to the bishop and told the bishop I was having affairs. And so the bishop believed her. And after the divorce, I was depressed, called him up, came to talk to me. He questioned me about that. And I said no prior to the end of our marriage. But afterwards, yeah, I'd had a couple of relationships. And right away, he wanted to excommunicate me because he still had that. I think you're lying because your wife was so convincing. She
Wow.
was.
Mhm.
And yet there was that, disconnection. And I remember in his office talking to him because he could not excommunicate me. I had to go talk to the stake president. I was a Mormon at the time. I was a convert.
Oh,
It
okay.
was one of those directions where my visions, my dreams led us into that. And for a time,
Mhm.
and out of that, I received a physical bestowal of the Melchizedek priesthood, which designing my life after Jesus, that seemed like a thing to do, right?
Yeah.
Because he was after the order of Melchizedek.
Mhm.
And so in the process, stake president, I finally told, so I hadn't told anybody, hadn't talked to anybody except counselors. And then when I went to the stake president, I was completely vulnerable and shared everything. And just kind of shook his head, blinked his eyes. I'm like, I don't think, this you don't need to be just, or whatever it was. But
Right.
but the bishop's got some authority and, we need to respect that. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll go talk to him, tell him what you said. And so there was a process called disfellowshipment, which I'd been giving communion, teaching Sunday school classes, doing work for the dead in the temple, and also doing home visits and taking care of a quadriplegic as part of my church duties. And so I could do none of that anymore
Oh,
for a year.
goodness.
So I stepped back for a year completely, moved, went back, restored my priesthood, and left.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you do? You know, uh,
Exactly.
so I still honor that because
Mm.
I honor my relationship with that Christ consciousness and cosmic consciousness more than I do anything,
Hmm.
because that is in the hollowness of the bone.
Absolutely.
And for anyone that wants to test it, ask a question. Shut up, go into your silence however you can get there. Be in that silence. Recognize that in that silence, there are no thoughts. It may take you a while to get there. But once you do, on the other side of that silence is that inner voice that we all have access to.
So you went through a.
That's a deep breather, huh?
Yeah, it is. It is because, I mean, everything was taken away from you at one time. I mean, everything fell apart at one time. And I mean, when you have that much happen, you are down to dust and you are rebuilding, right? From that point.
Well, it's like now with the LLMs and the recursive function, right? Recursive function means that there's a system that queries itself for problem solving.
Oh, interesting.
That's what that means, and that's what
Okay.
the LLMs do. And because they're a repository of all the human created information, it's fallible,
Mm-hmm.
right? It
Mm-hmm.
drifts.
Yep.
Now, our recursive function doesn't drift.
Right.
We go into our closet and pray, right? You go into the silence, you shut up with the intention of being answered, the faith and trust that you will. And it's impeccable in how it happens. It just does.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
And over time, it gets easier and easier, and the micro and those extended moments of contemplation and query and listening turn into micro moments and nanoseconds at times.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that's 50 years of practice, right?
Yes,
So,
exactly. Exactly. Hmm. But hey, you know, it gets shorter, I think, with each
oh, absolutely.
generation. Hmm.
Yeah, when you trust it. And then, that after all of that, I had the following year was just amazing. I reconnected with me
Ooh.
and had all kinds of opportunities that I never even knew were available.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
and it all happened, not all, but much of it happened through a good friend of mine that had, towards the end of our marriage, one of our counselors said, you need, you're an emotional robot. You need to go, and I was still going by Bruce at the time, which is my given name.
Okay.
I found out at 61 that my birth mother would have also named me Bruce.
Oh, how interesting is that?
Well, it fits, right? Here's the
Yeah.
divine order in things. You know what Bruce means?
Hmm.
Dweller of the thicket.
Oh, interesting.
When I was given the name I have, Zen is still a short form. The name I was given in meditation, the full moon of 1988, was Zendor. And
Oh,
it was given to me as a door to what is kind of thing. So I used it, uh, pause that. So I'm going to go back to my friend that he was a guitarist he came to my discussion groups that I had initiated after the counselor said, you need to do what makes Bruce happy. So I just wanted to talk to people about weird shit, right? So I did. And I started running ads on the back page of the New Times, which is an alternative newspaper here. And I had started out with 10 or 12, and Ron was part of that and expanded to 35 in a restaurant, and then gradually into the Safari Resort and pulling in speakers and having 150 people. Um, However, in that, so I moved in with Ron. Ron called me up one day, said, "Hey, I'm looking for a roommate. My family had already moved back to Indiana. I was living in a guest house." He says, I'm looking for a roommate. I said, "No, you're not." He said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, I'm ready." He said, "Cool. All right." So he was staying in a house that was used by a group that were studying Stanford's work and the Association for the Understanding of Man, AUM, something like that. Um, and they were studying channelings and metaphysical principles and all this kind of stuff. And they were also using William Swigard's work. Now, William, I don't know what his actual profession was, but in the 1950s, he developed two techniques, the multi-plane awareness and the multi-level awareness, which were facilitated processes. The multi-level allowed you to talk to your guides, work with your chakras, look at the Akashic records, that kind of stuff. And then the multi-plane was a process where you um, created your light body and moved that light body through 9 planes of consciousness and integrate it with the bodies on each of those planes.
Fascinating.
Talk about multidimensional, right?
Absolutely.
So then, gosh, 30 years later, yeah, almost 30 years later, 2010, Nepi and Close published a theory of everything paper called the Triadic Dimensional Distinction Vortical Paradigm that had the math and science to explain that 9 planes of consciousness.
Wow.
So, right, there was that. Then, during that period, that summer, actually, it was the following year. That was the summer of '89, and then and then in 1990, I was putting an event together, and I went to the Christown Lions Club to see if I could get the coverage for their event insurance. And the president liked me, introduced me to one of the other guys that he thought that I would really get along with. He was about my age, and the president was a bit older. And so we got together, and he invited me to be part of a television production crew for them.
Oh my goodness.
And so I went through the training from the local public access manager, it was Cox Communication, I'm sorry, Dimension Cable at the time. And afterwards, I became part of a 7, 8 man crew. And I was running graphics one day, and my friend was running the switcher. He was a director, and so he would direct and run the switcher at the same time. And he turns to me, I could tell he was getting frustrated with the talent, and because it was difficult to direct the talent that he was working with. And he turns to me and said, "Why don't you do a show? You got all the connections," because I was really heavily connected with the metaphysical community at that time. And he said, "Why don't you do a New Age show?" And I had been sitting hoping for that, right? And so it came up. And I'm like, "I'd love to, but I'm not going to call it New Age because that's a kiss of death in this
Right,
market,
right, right.
right? In Phoenix."
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I said, "Let me think on it." And so came up with the title of One World. And I had, in meditation, got the format of asking people how they got where they were at, what prompted them to do what they were doing from both inner and outer perspectives, what fears they encountered, how they worked through them, how they saw that fitting into the common human experience around them, and how they saw that breaking the boundaries to a global community, and
Ooh,
hopefully
great
providing some
questions.
evidence for that. Yeah, just a shallow conversation. So and I use Zen door as a subheading
Oh.
because I was being a door to what is. I was peering into their lives, and because of the ability that I had to communicate and develop conversation, they had a lot of vulnerable shares.
Yeah, I would
And
imagine.
I started with one, did two guests, so I began to compare and contrast the different ways that they would say things and show that you could tie it together because they were actually saying the same thing differently. And
Mm-hmm.
then I would get them to see that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, well, 6 shows in, a guy steps out from behind the camera and calls me Zen. And it began. That was probably July or August of 1990. And I'm like, "No, no, no." Reason being, I had issues with people in the 70s that were changing their names because
Yeah,
they were
yep,
spiritual, right? And I
yep.
was like, that's nonsense. Well, here I'm faced with that. I still never changed my name legally.
Yeah, that's all right. Who cares?
No. But, everybody knows me as Zen and they expect a certain demeanor because of that.
It's
And
true.
yet here is another challenge to live up to.
Yep. Yep. The expectations with a name. Yeah.
And I think those are good expectations
Yeah.
in my case.
Yeah.
I don't always match them. I'm fallible. I'm human. I have emotions. I get triggered sometimes. And it's becoming less and less.
Yeah.
Right? But there are certain things, especially when it comes to me and how I communicate and the misunderstanding that occurs because I don't pay attention enough to speak to the listener. Because when you're trying to, as an educator, I taught high school for a number of years, the
Yeah.
adult ed. I taught business plan writing classes to women minority-owned business owners.
Mhm.
Uh, so when you're educating people, you always want to talk to them just a little above where
Mhm.
they're at,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And I was in the stratosphere
Yes.
and wondering why I wasn't connecting.
Yeah.
And so over the years, I've not dumbed down. I've learned how to communicate more simply.
Yeah.
And through the catharsis that I've had with the 40s, I'm actually 52 now, and I'm on my 53rd, just getting ready to publish it. And it's about coherence intelligence.
Oh my goodness.
Um, so it gives rise to that ability to say things simply with openings for curious interaction afterwards,
Mhm.
because the questions are more important than the answers.
Interesting. So, my goodness.
I hit the pause button there,
Yeah.
so oh, he's done. Fine. No,
No, no, I was like,
I'm
okay.
teasing. I'm teasing. As you notice, I'm very self-effacing. Why not?
Well, so then I was just thinking, okay, so to make the leap into where you are now, I think a lot has transpired.
Yeah, just a little bit, and in that, it's been micro moments and micro changes,
Yeah.
micro choices, and in those moments, like I say, an extended moment sometimes now is just a micro moment because you have the question of what's next, and boom, the answer's there,
Yes.
and so you just follow the breadcrumbs. Now
Exactly.
today, oh man, things are just so amazing, having that mission of facilitating coherent intelligence on the planet, right? I'll just put it that way. A new world order, right? It's truly new.
It
It's
is.
not the old one with the new facade that they're
Right.
pushing. That's prescriptive.
Hmm.
This is more natural.
Hmm.
It's the evolution of a planetary civilization in its natural course and the human beings, that the spiritual beings in human experiences that are going along for the ride, right? And are part and parcel of that process. Well, most recently, we, uh, my wife encouraged me, and who's from Leningrad, USSR. So we met in 2016. She was trained as a piano pedagogue in Russia
My
or in the Soviet Union, came to America, excelled. She went to work for the Arizona State University and then UC at Irvine and played for Baryshnikov and other Russian dance troops that requested her because of her ability. And then she began teaching. And so we met oddly enough, talk about a high vibe person. We met at her Kundalini yoga teacher training graduation.
And were you also going through that?
No, no. But here's the breadcrumbs and the setup. I got a phone call from a friend of mine. They were doing a gig at an outdoor concert. I won't. He was a front man for a band that was really loud and obnoxious, and he was a mortgage broker, right? And so I wouldn't listen to him inside. He was doing it at a place called Canyon Lake, and I said, "Yeah, I'll be there." So I show up, And they're setting up, and I'm walking around behind the stage, and there's a jungle gym and sand area behind it. And there's this little blonde, blue-eyed 5-year-old that's just walking away from it that has to tell me his story. Right. And there's nobody else around. So I sit down on a park bench next to him. So I'm closer to eye level with him, and he's telling me what's going on there. And then a few minutes later, my buddy walks up from one direction. His dad walks up from the other. And my buddy said, "Oh, Brent, this is Zen. This is the guy I was telling you about."
Oh
I'm
my.
talking to his son, right? So we sit down and talk for a couple hours to begin with. We spent the rest of the day together because it was such a tight connection. But he tells me about this 26-week Kundalini yoga teacher training that's just kicking his ass. And he's so glad that he's only got 2 more weeks left. And so a week and a half later, I get a text from him inviting me to the graduation.
Oh my goodness.
So I decide to go. I normally don't go to those things,
No, of
but
course not.
something inside said, yeah, go. So I paid attention. On the way there, and it hadn't even occurred to me that I might meet someone,
Mm.
right? On the way there, I finally figured it out. Now, what happened prior to that on the inner level is I had a dream of hugging it. Now, I'd had an angry conversation with the guys because I had committed my life to this. They told me that everything would be there at its point in time. I still didn't have my partner,
Jeez.
right?
Divine timing.
So I got angry and I said, look, guys, I'm done. You know, provider, I'm done. 'Cause I was playing golf and enjoying myself and, and I had some income and why, right? Why bother? And so that angry conversation produced a dream later of hugging a woman and merging with her as one. Now, I've
Mhm.
had many precogs of seeing, prior relationships and the physical form outlines and things like that. Nothing like this.
Right. Right.
And so I was just, you know, for days afterwards, it just resided and wondering what was going to happen. So sure enough, my wife, or soon to be wife, when they called her name, Luba Brodsky. Now, prior to this, she had walked across the room in front of me, no eye contact whatsoever, and my heart literally flipped in my chest. So I was paying attention. And I was sitting in the back of the room. When they called her up, they announced Luba Brodsky, and right away I'm like, Brodsky, Russian, man, cool, right? Perfect partner because Russians are supposed to be our arch enemies.
Mhm.
That's bullshit.
Right.
Right? But we think that because we're
Yeah.
programmed.
Yep.
And so afterwards, I went up and introduced myself and said, I find you intriguing. I would love to have a cup of coffee with you if you and talk more if you'd like, or I'll even make lunch for us. I love to cook. And
Nice.
first words out of her mouth, "Are you reading me?" Right? It's just amazing. And so instantly fell in love. That was October 30th of 2016. Her and her mother and 12-year-old son, we all moved together the first week of December. And I now
Wow.
caretake her mother, had just turned 92 the day
Wow.
before I turned 69.
Oh my goodness.
So and she doesn't speak Russian, so it makes it easier to
Mm.
have the touchy-feely, sensitive,
Mm.
caring with her. Um, and, you know, she's just not there now. She's got advanced dementia.
Oh.
Um, and so she doesn't know where she is, what time of day it is, nothing. Doesn't
Mm.
even know her daughter anymore.
That hurts,
And
doesn't
it's
it?
hard for her to go into the room because that's not mom anymore. And
Yeah.
she's an extremely sensitive Piscean.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so I just took over and I love doing it.
Oh, wow.
Um, so fast forward, I asked her to marry me and we got married on the base of Bell Rock on the fall equinox of
Oh,
27.
nice.
And it's been amazing ever since. It's not been easy by any stretch because the twin flame relationship, which is what it,
Hmm.
we are,
Hmm.
is full of challenges because you're balancing the scales.
Hmm.
You're not there for a utopian, kumbaya session, right?
Right.
Just the opposite.
Hmm.
And it's the faith, love, and trust of that soul recognition that gets us through everything
It's true.
because we always return to that. Now, we're humans, right? We have discussions, we have arguments, and we have disagreements. And a lot of that has been learning how to merge cultural programming
Right.
too,
Hmm.
as well as language.
Hmm.
Because Russian language is, in my opinion, they say English language is advanced, it's ubiquitous. We would have a real hard time learning Russian. It's got six more letters and six more tenses,
Oh my goodness.
right? So you can say the same word in multiple inflections and it means something different,
Oh my
kind of like Mandarin,
goodness.
right? Same kind of thing where there's multiple meanings for one word depending on how you say it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now,
And
English
like,
has some of that,
hmm.
right? Now, one of the things when first started playing with some guys, I got into playing drums again in early 90s and started playing with some guys. And one of the guys, a really astute musician, and he was also the director of Bailey School of Broadcast at the time. He says to me, you'll need to learn to play the space between the notes. Now, my wife is a classical pianist. Those spaces are like that.
Right.
And yet, because of the nature of the art, when you master your skill, you learn the feeling, you learn the flow, you know how to embody the music, not just play it.
Hmm.
Anybody can play notes,
Absolutely.
right? When
Hmm.
you embody the music, then you actually end up being the hollow bone for the composer.
Hmm. Absolutely.
And sometimes even imbuing it with more than they knew
Yeah.
how to put in it,
Yeah.
with the kind of skill level that she has.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things, that's like life. You listen, that's the silence, the space between the notes. Be in that space. And then the notes become secondary. It's like, the first nature is find the silence, listen. And then the second nature is the outer explanation or outer expression
Mhm.
of that, which eventually becomes first nature because the inner and the outer become one, which is how we're designed to begin with,
Exactly.
right? Why can't we see that? It's such a simple concept,
Hmm.
especially now with all the consciousness studies and the quantum physics and quantum mechanics, quantum sciences in general are showing what the Vedas, and the Vedas were Sanskrit poems
Hmm.
written, they say 3,500 years ago. Some sources say 15,000 years ago. Um, doesn't matter. The Vedantic philosophy simply says we're all divine threads, incarnate, connected to source, capable of God consciousness. Well, what is that? That's the bridge of the inner and outer and being a creator with everybody else. Because we're all co-creators. We just got to learn how to get along and work together. That's our mission here, to love and be loved.
Hmm. Hmm. Exactly. And ironically, I tend to believe that the standard religions don't teach that.
Well, they do. They do, actually. Um, that's the core of all of them.
Yes, but
However,
not.
however, however,
Hmm.
they also include the false belief system that there is a being called Satan. And you
Hmm.
know where that word comes from? So after my white light experience in college, I had this, I'll beware of Satan, he appears as the angel of light
Yeah.
crap going on in my head.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, that doesn't feel right for some reason.
Yeah. Exactly.
And as a systems feeler, I'm usually right when I
Mm-hmm.
feel that.
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't know how to prove it yet. So I start looking for why I feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so the best way for me to do it at the time was to go to the university library and inquire in the dictionary, right? If you've ever seen university level dictionaries, there are two volumes. There's an A through M or an A through L that's
Yeah.
like this thick,
Yep.
and then there's an M through Z that's of equal thickness,
Yep.
right? They're huge.
Yep.
So they got,
Yeah.
I mean, they're really well researched. The very first entry to the word Satan referenced Greek Thetan, Thetan. Guess what it means?
Phantom.
Thinker.
Oh, thinker. Hmm.
So from that perspective, we're our own adversary. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing outside of us,
Right.
right? And this is what they don't teach. They
Mm-hmm.
teach the outer adversary that we have to fight against somehow. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're always in this warring, contentious position
Mm-hmm.
with others,
Mm-hmm.
especially those that have the kind of experiences that embody what the books teach about,
Mm-hmm.
because it's contrary
Right.
to what they're taught, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and then there's all kinds of, tithes and offerings and things to make up for your sin, which is simply, it's missed the mark, right? You fail forward. Forgive yourself, move on. Don't pay somebody to do it,
Exactly.
right? And because of that, the Vatican is the largest landowner in the world.
Exactly.
Now, that's okay.
Yeah.
This is not to
Right.
point fingers or
Right.
blame or anything,
Right.
because the moment you point a finger, look at what
Yeah.
happens. You got three of them coming back at you. My dad
Exactly.
taught me this as a teenager. He said, if you don't have three solutions, shut up.
Oh my.
Wonderful, wise man, Piscean as well.
Aha.
Um, and dear, but when I tried to talk about spiritual stuff with him, he was a block wall. I mean, he was a nothing. Mom was different. We'd be talking about stuff, and I even had my when my grandma, my maternal grandmother passed. She I'd sent her a letter, and I asked her to come visit me. I was in Phoenix. She was in Anderson, Indiana, in a hospital. And I sent her a letter that mom read to her and asked her to come visit me on her way out.
Ah.
She did.
Nice.
I told my mother what had happened.
Yeah.
2 weeks later, she had a similar thing happen with her.
Ooh.
So what happened was, I call her Nan. She appeared in my vision
Mm-hmm.
as what she looked like then, and then transformed into a young maiden's, for lack of a better,
Yeah.
body. Did
Yeah.
the same thing in the bow window, in a pane of a bow window, uh, for mom a few weeks
Wow.
later. So we
No.
were talking about that one evening. I went back to visit,
Mm-hmm.
and she was very open and talking about it. Then dad walks in the room and close down, shut up. I thought it was odd, but oh well. Didn't change my experience of things.
Right.
And that's the thing about truth. Truth comes from your experience. It doesn't come from a book or a person or a savior or any of that.
Mm-hmm.
The truth comes by you questioning your place in the world and listening deeply to be shown.
Mm-hmm.
Now, others, we've got such a codependent society that we listen to everybody else and what they think we ought to do, and we try to do that, and then find out, ooh, yeah, life's yucky,
Yeah.
and we don't know why,
Yeah.
right? We perform well, but we're not happy. So why is that? And how do we craft a way for all of us to move out of that? Well, COVID began it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Unbeknownst, it may have been something else, right? Who cares,
Yeah.
right? What it did was it opened a door for people to start questioning
Yeah.
their lives and their position and their framework and their belief systems and what
Yeah.
they wanted to do about it and how they truly would like to be. And then with all the remote working, it gave people a chance to experience that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there were massive shifts. There still are.
Yep.
Now we're still in that tug of war. Oh, this was used to be normal, but it's not normal now. This is the new normal. We got to come over here, and then there's this vacillation in between that offers a lot of room for inquiry, for trust. For stepping in, like I've done with my life. Right? I have the opportunity. I step in. I don't know where it's going to go. It may not go anywhere. I won't know if I don't step in.
That's right.
And I've accomplished some pretty cool stuff with that. Back to the show. Started in 2021. We named it One World in a New World. Same questions, asked a little differently. When did you first encounter your inner awareness of the interconnectedness of all things, and how you make it practical in your life and work? And
Mm-hmm.
what suggestions can you give to others?
Yeah.
Now, just aired our 246th episode. We're in our sixth year
Mm.
with 2.3-ish million channel views
Woo.
and about 30,000 subscribers. Um,
Fabulous.
that led to interviewing a world peace uh, proponent, Live and Let Live. You mentioned that in the intro. I interviewed the founder, got along. It turns out his office, he's a lawyer, defense lawyer of all things.
Mm.
His office is less than 5 minutes away.
Oh my gosh.
So naturally, right, I
Yeah.
had lunch with him and said, hey, I got skill set for executive director if you need one. I had no idea why those words came out of my mouth, but they did.
Who said that?
Exactly. Right. They came out before I could stop them. And so he said, well, we don't have anybody, we don't need anybody right now. We've got a person in place. And then a month and a half later, I get a phone call. Hey, would you like to be co-directors with a woman in Hawaii that wants to step up as well? And I said, absolutely. That's a perfect example
Yeah.
of the balanced leadership roles of
Yeah.
masculine and feminine.
Yep.
I'm there. And so I
Mm-hmm.
spent 3.5 years with her. And then the founder wanted to go a different direction, and we're both outside looking in.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, I got tapped on the shoulder. I had landed the planetarycitizens.net domain name in 2010, I think, built a
Mm-hmm.
website showcasing world servers at the time, and just, did a little updates here and there, but pretty much let it sit.
Mm-hmm.
And because I wasn't sure what to do with it yet, I'd just been tapped on the shoulder to get the domain name, so I followed up with the website. And I didn't even think the domain would be available. So then 2023, I get tapped on the shoulder to get nonprofit status and to rekindle Donald Keyes' work from the 70s, which was the original Planetary Citizens. Donald Keyes was the speechwriter for Youth Thought, who was then Secretary General of the UN
Oh my goodness.
and also a member. And their concept was of a borderless world.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the 70s, that certainly didn't fly.
Right.
So over time, the organization kind of dissolved. Norman Cousins was part of it. Edgar Mitchell, Barbara Marx Hubbard, um, a lot of these folks had association with them. And then, you know, 50 years later, 40 years later, I met both of them. I had conversations with Edgar Mitchell, sixth man on the moon,
Yeah.
and Barbara Marx Hubbard, who is responsible for developing the co-creation wheel that we use on Planetary Citizens today.
Very interesting.
Um, so those kinds of things, Planetary Citizens is about creating a holistic system that serves everyone. And the co-creation wheel has 12 sectors that divide society into its, natural components.
Mm-hmm.
And then the what it does that we don't recognize, even researchers in specific fields are their own silos. They're not connected to everybody else unless they're starting to do research on their own. They go out and find them,
Hmm.
right? Most of them have tunnel vision. It's like, oh, this is what and here's, you know, what they call it, cognitive bias, where they want to prove what they think they know.
Exactly. Hmm.
And so then with those silos and the individuals as well as industries and companies and organizations, these need to be mitigated so that they all have the same information. And when that information is shared, it's like rising the tide, right? All the ships rise with it. And then, and then, I feel like Paul Harvey. And the rest of
Rest
the
of the
story,
story.
right? Um, So currently, then over the last, and it started about the time the show started, shortly thereafter, because I was an author on Biz Catalyst 360, um, that Farouk Omar was also on, and we started having conversations via the articles that we were writing
Oh,
and
no.
responding, and the conversations deepened, and they spoke to the leadership that's going to be necessary to build a better world on all kinds of levels.
Hmm.
And then a few months ago, maybe 6 months ago now, time flies, he posted. Now, I knew him as a professor and author from Pakistan,
Yep.
right? And unbeknownst, he was a 30-year AI coder with global consulting, including the World Bank level for strategic systems, right? So this guy's brilliant,
Yeah,
right? It's no wonder
absolutely.
we got along. And so, and he's Pakistani, Islamic, I'm guessing. So here's, I'm Christian. People would say I'm Christian. I'm not. I'm just, I am.
Yeah.
And that's all I am. And I don't put any labels on myself, and nor do I put them on any others as much as possible.
Right.
We're all people deserving of loving and being loved, right? So he introduces an article that defines the findings of this creation that he just made.
Hmm.
And so it analyzes the strength of a business and the direction it needs to take in order to stay safe, and VUCA proofing, if you will. And
Hmm.
everybody's familiar with the term VUCA now, especially in business.
Hmm.
um, Volatility, uncertainty, chaos, and anonymity, or I forget, something like that. So he introduces that and then asks me to become a partner. Why? Because he'd used some of my books as for some of the layers of the engine itself, right?
Perfect.
Unbeknownst.
Perfect.
And so, that began. So it's the AI universal engine.
Hmm.
And what it does is it VUCA proofs enterprises, whether it's a business, a nonprofit, or an institution, by analyzing where it's at, all the financials, all the data that's available,
Hmm.
open that's read only, right? It's
Yeah.
not that's all it needs. And so it analyzes that information and determines where all the leaks are financially, including, production cycles and all kinds of things, right? You name it, it's there. And then, so that points the company in the direction that once that's uncovered and it looks at the market, and it's got hundreds of different market resources, so it has real-time information,
Mm.
and it weighs that information against what the company's doing and provides a clear path forward that's VUCA proof. And
Makes
and how it does that is it tests that potential solution against 10,000 others. So
sense.
machine precision, right? This happens
Yep.
a matter of days
Yeah.
instead of months that normal consultants do it. And they can't assess the data that well anyway. It's
Right.
all projections and best guesses
Yeah.
at the end of that. So then it takes that information, tests it against the 10,000 scenarios, and then also looks at the organizational information and the communications that are taking place within it digitally. and finds the friction points because the language that's used reveals where people are at. Patterns, pattern
Mm.
recognition, right?
Yep.
We can't do that. Some of us can,
Right.
right? But it takes months,
Yeah.
again, to
Yeah.
go through all of that. And who would want to read everybody's emails to do that?
Exactly.
Or any kind of interoffice communications, right? Yet that information, the language used, the words used reveal the friction points.
Interesting.
And so then the engine hands over that information to the leadership so they can work on rebuilding trust and community and the alignment and coherence necessary for their mission to be carried out. Now, the the ultimate caveat is that it's there to create world peace.
Hmm.
And so it looks at ecosystem regeneration projects as well, or that kind of information within it. So it looks at where the natural fit is for the organization to move forward in that light. Not all of them do or will. And over time, in the next 10, 15 years, a lot of those organizations are going to disappear naturally anyway because of the refocus of what we need to do as a world
Hmm.
to take us into this next period. And so we're going from what used to be in the industrial age, the command and control structures that are full of best practices. And now that management philosophy is flipping to coherence intelligence and operating from that place, which is inclusive of the development of AI. Now, the difference, when we talk about AI, most people are speaking from the large language model perspective, the LLMs. And this is the agentic, strategies and things like that. They're all built on LLMs.
Hmm.
And you can pull, you can create your own, you can do all that kind of stuff. That's still probabilistic in nature. What we have is not even close to an LLM. Doesn't even touch it. It's all coded. It's a closed system. There's no drift. And it's deterministic, not probabilistic.
Got it.
So huge difference. Now, how do you educate a public that are used to best guesses?
You're gonna find a way.
Right, right. This is an unknown fact. Oh, we are. Trust me.
Hmm. Hmm.
And this is the most interesting part of the process too, is because, okay, now we've got it. How do we get others to listen or which leads to the question, where are they listening?
Yeah.
Right. And if they're listening to a different lens, then we have to speak to that lens and
Yep.
slightly above it,
Yep.
right, to
Yep.
begin that educational process to build the intelligence from the ground up.
Mm.
No small task.
No small task.
My life's not been a small task.
I was going to say, it sounds like you have come full circle.
I hope so,
Yeah,
because it feels like we're on the precipice of fulfilling my life's mission.
absolutely.
And it's obvious in the world that we're on that precipice too.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm just one guy. It's not about me.
I know.
It's about finding, it's about discovering the truth within us all,
Hmm. Hmm.
aligning with it, and that produces the coherence necessary for us to move into the future with not just sustainability, with thrivability.
Absolutely. And peace.
Good business produces peace because it's based on trust.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
We got to start there.
yeah.
And if you notice, everything that we learn in education has come from the needs of business.
Hmm.
Our educational system,
Yeah,
archaic,
yep.
built on the production worker mentality from the 1940s, right? It hasn't changed. It's changed slightly, right? But, you know, um, dinosaurs evolve a little, right? It's over time. However, sometimes they've got to be really rocked or there's an ice age,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Or something like that. I mean, there's all kinds of metaphors that we can throw at this process, and they all fit.
Right.
The important thing is it's a process,
Right.
and processes take time, intelligence, perseverance. I love the 5 Ps, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Patience, perseverance, persistence, passion, and purpose.
Perfect.
Now, there's a sixth one that's kind of unspoken, right? And that's practice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, all of these things are available. They're out there for anybody to find and absorb. What needs to happen is the integration and the embodiment of them. We had one of the world's greatest embodiers that passed away on my mother-in-law's birthday on the Monday, actually, Dr. Irvin Laszlo.
Oh, right.
I had the blessing of interviewing him.
My goodness.
His son, Alex, is on our board of advisors for Planetary Citizens. Irvin is an amazing man who
Mm.
understood coherence. Also a piano prodigy when he was young, played all over the world, saw what the music did to people, started studying consciousness, wrote his first manuscript when he was on tour and presented it to his road manager because he wasn't sure if it had any value or not. And the road manager's like, he flipped over it. And that's what began his career in studying consciousness and systems.
My goodness. You know, I think we're out of time, but I'm so happy that you were able to follow for the audience and for me the life cycle.
The red rubber ball.
It really is. And what I want to do is read your last chapter, just the paragraph,
Sure.
that last paragraph in there, because I think this pulls it all together for people. So, if you don't mind.
I
so,
don't
some,
mind. Doesn't matter.
okay, good. Sometimes life has to fall apart, not because you're cursed, but because your soul is getting promoted. So hang in there, breathe, laugh when you can, cry when you must, and trust that even the weird detours have divine directions. I love that paragraph. And I think everything you just described in this beautiful interview is that full circle of the weird detours with divine directions.
Yeah. There's a lot of them, and they're amazing.
They are amazing.
They're excruciatingly fun, right? Because in the
Yes.
midst, it ain't fun. But
Yeah,
after
right.
after you go through them enough times, you start recognizing the patterns and you realize, okay, this too shall pass,
Yep,
and it will.
yep.
And so there's that lightheartedness is, oh, this is a process. I've just got to get through it. Right.
Something's coming.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. And it
Thank you.
always does.
Oh, it
Always.
does. Yes. Thank you so much, Zen. This has just been so enlightened, and thank you for uh, just sharing so much of your story with so much transparency. I appreciate it so much.
Oh, you're welcome. It's being honest and authentic, right? You
That's it.
share, and yes, it's vulnerable. Sometimes it hurts because the memories there that come up, but every time they do, and the painful ones come up, they get less and less because you
It's true.
have the opportunity to ascend from them yet
That's right.
again.
That is right.
Um, Life is full of riches. All we need to do is embrace it.
Perfect words to end with. Thank you so much, Zen.
Mm. You're welcome.
And thank you to the listeners today and to those listening to the archives. We so appreciate you too. Thank you.